So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time in around 20 minutes. Look, follow this lecture series because you are going to save a lot of your time. You don't have to spend hours reading the newspaper. You just have to spend around 20 to 25 minutes and you'll be done for the day. Okay? Your entire day's current affairs would get covered. And I need not tell you the importance of current affairs for your civil services examination because current affairs are the most important portion of your syllabus, right? 40 to 50% of your exam, whether that's prelims or mains, is directly or indirectly related to current affairs. Therefore, you cannot choose to ignore current affairs and you have to cover current affairs on a daily basis. So, to save a lot of your time, you just have to spend 20 to 25 minutes covering or watching this lecture, and your entire day's current affairs would get covered. But just watching this lecture would cover half your job. What do I mean by that? Look, after watching this lecture, you have to revise this lecture also if you really want to remember these current affairs for longer periods of time, if you want to keep these current affairs in your memory for longer periods of time. And you can revise these current affairs through our notes. The notes for this lecture would be available in PDF file and they would be available on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below this video. So you have to just click on this link. It will take you to our Telegram channel and from there, you can download the notes for this lecture. So 20 to 25 minutes of watching this lecture and another 20 to 25 minutes of revising this lecture. In about 40 to 50 minutes, you'll be done for the day as far as current affairs are concerned. You don't have to worry about current affairs. Now your entire day is free. Do whatever you want. Stay worry free as far as current affairs are concerned, okay, in just about 40 to 50 minutes. Okay, so make this lecture series a part of your daily routine. It should be a daily habit of yours, just 40 to 50 minutes on a daily basis by watching this lecture and by revising the notes given along with this lecture, and you won't have to worry about current affairs for your exam. All right, okay, enough of the introduction. Now let's straight away jump into the discussion, starting with taking a look at what topics we shall cover in this particular lecture. So today in total, we'll be focusing on 5 topics because these were the only 5 news items that were of importance for us civil services aspirants from today's newspaper. Okay. Number 1 is recent announcement regarding under trial prisoners by Union Home Minister Amit Shah. So we'll talk about under trial prisoners and what sort of facility has the government provided for them. Then recently, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that he has revised his nuclear doctrine and has raised the threat levels of nuclear weapons in the current Russia-Ukraine war. So we'll talk about this issue. Then Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently visited to a Caribbean country called Guyana. So we'll talk about this relationship between India and Guyana. Then a news item related to the culture aspect, Indian culture aspect, will be discussed as 4th topic. Sacred relics of Saint Francis Xavier, who was instrumental in spreading Christianity, especially in Goa, which was a Portuguese colony back then. So we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about ground station as a service for satellite operation. Okay. Recently, ISRO and an organization called InSpace have made certain announcements. So we'll talk about this ground station as a service for satellite operation and invitation to private players to enter this sector. Okay. So this is space related news. So first news item is related to India's criminal justice system, judicial system. So this would be part of GS2. Second is related to IR, again GS2. This is also IR, third topic, GS2. This is related to Indian culture, GS1. And this is related to space, science and technology, GS3. All right. So let's begin the discussion starting with topic number 1, which is India's under trial prisoners. Now, before starting with this news, you need to be familiar with the term under trial. Now, who are under trials? Look, whenever criminals are found, okay, whenever they are arrested, they are split into 2 categories, okay. First, when they are arrested, they are called under trial. Who are under trials? We'll talk about them in a moment. Then a case goes on them, okay, prosecution happens in courts, and once they are convicted, okay, once they are found guilty of the crime, they are sent to jails, and these people are called convicted people. But under trials are also sent to jail, okay. But the difference is that under trials are those people on whom allegations are there, but they haven't been proved in a court of law. So their trial is going on right now. They haven't been proved guilty. Their trial is going on, but they have been arrested, so they are put in jail. Okay. So these are under trials. Convicted criminals are those who have been convicted of a crime. Under trials, the case is still going on, but they are in jail. Now, Union Home Minister Amit Shah said that under trials who have spent more than a third of the maximum prescribed sentence for the crime they are accused of committing should be released before Constitution Day. Now, the thing is, sometimes what happens is that these people who have allegedly committed a crime, their crime's sentence is about 10 years. But their case goes on and on for 8 years. Okay. So these people haven't been proven guilty, yet they have spent jail time at around 8 years. There are some cases where under trials have spent time in jail, detained in jails, and the time that they have been detained in jails is more than the sentence for the crime that they have, that the allegations were made against them. Okay, so this is a problem because the burden on our judiciary is so much, their cases go on for long. So these people haven't been proved guilty, but they spend their entire jail sentence in a way, right? So Amit Shah ji has said that for under trials who have spent one third of their time in jail, one third of what time? If they were proven guilty, then they would have gotten a sentence. If they have already spent one third of that time, then they are up for bail. Bail can be given to them. And he said that these criminals or these supposedly criminals should be released before Constitution Day, which is celebrated on November 26th. So remember this part also. Every 26th November, Constitution Day is celebrated. Now he gave this statement while highlighting that the BJP government has released a new law called Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita, and this new law allows for bail to who have already spent one third of their sentence. Okay. Now, what provision is he talking about? Okay, about BNSS. Okay, so Section 479 of BNSS, which Home Minister Amit Shah ji referred to, it says that an under trial prisoner can be released on bail if detention extends to half of the maximum period of imprisonment specified under that law. So if he has already spent half of his sentence, well, he's up for bail. Now, this is for prisoners who are not accused of offenses punishable with death or life imprisonment. Okay, bail will only be given to prisoners who are not accused of crimes for which they can be given a death sentence or life imprisonment. Okay. Now, Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita replaced CRPC, but there was a similar provision in CRPC called Section 436A. But a new provision was added in BNSS, which is for first-time offenders, those who have been caught by the police for the very first time. They can be released on bail, not on spending half of their sentence, one third of their sentence. And this is what Amit Shah ji was referring to. Okay. Now, the situation of under trials in our jails is very bad. This is very bad. This is against justice, basically. You haven't been proven guilty, but still you're spending time in jail. Okay. But this is the situation in India. According to National Crime Records Bureau, Prison Statistics of India 2022, 5,73,220 people incarcerated in prisons. 4,34,000 are under trials. Okay. So 75.8% of people in our jails are under trials. Look, it is understandable for the remaining 25%, but these people haven't been proven guilty. But still, they are under trials and spending time in jail. This is the bad situation of criminal justice system in our country. Okay. Of the 23,772 women in prisons, 18,000 are under trial. So 76% under trials for women prisons. Okay. Around 8.6% of all under trial prisoners had been in prison for more than 3 years. So their case is going on. Their crime hasn't been proven, but they have spent more than 3 years in jail. Okay. This is problematic. Alright. And that is why Home Minister Amit Shah was referring to bail to them. Alright. Okay. Next news item is Russia's nuclear doctrine. So what has happened? You know the background. Okay. Ukraine has used American-made ATACMS missile to hit Russia. And the usage of these missiles has really angered Russia. Okay. It has really escalated the conflict, and Russia has threatened by updating its nuclear doctrine, By that, Russia is indirectly saying that we can use nuclear weapons on Ukraine. Okay. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a revised nuclear doctrine declaring that a conventional attack on Russia by any nation that is supported by a nuclear power will be considered a joint attack on his country. So earlier, what used to be the case, if a country who is a nuclear weapons country attacks Russia, then Russia will respond with weapons. Okay. Now, earlier it wasn't the case that if a country which is a non-nuclear weapon country, that country attacks Russia, then Russia won't respond with nuclear weapons. But now what Russia has said is that if a non-nuclear weapon country attacks it and it has got the support of a nuclear power, then that non-nuclear power will be attacked with nuclear weapons. Clearly referring to Ukraine. Clearly he's saying that Ukraine is non-nuclear weapon country, but it is supported by America, which is a nuclear weapons country. So we will attack Ukraine with nuclear weapons. They have threatened nuclear war. Okay. Now Putin signed a decree, an order updating Russia's nuclear doctrine. The last that this nuclear doctrine was published was in 2020. Now again, Russia is really angry with Ukraine's usage of ATACMS missile. Now, what are the key changes made to this nuclear doctrine, which was published in 2020, but now in 2024, Vladimir Putin has changed it? So, what are the key changes? First of all, now Russia can, as per its nuclear doctrine, can attack Ukraine. I have explained before, if a non-nuclear weapon country attacks Russia, but it has got the support of a nuclear weapons country, nuclear weapons can be fired on that country. So, it applies to Ukraine. Then, Russia has included Belarus also. If a non-nuclear weapon country with the support of nuclear weapon country attacks Russia or Belarus, okay, so even if Ukraine attacks Belarus using America's help, Russia will use nuclear weapons. So it has included Belarus in its territory, not in its territory, but in its umbrella. Right? Russia's nuclear deterrent is now also against non-nuclear states that allow their land, water, airspace to be used against Russia. Okay, so now it is applicable to non-nuclear weapon states also. Earlier it wasn't the case. Clearly he is threatening USA to not support Ukraine, because if it does, then Russia will attack with nuclear weapons, and that's something that the entire world doesn't want. All right. Okay, next topic, PM Modi's visit to Guyana. So India and Guyana on Wednesday firmed up 10 agreements. So PM Modi was on his 3-day tour. Okay, first stop was to Nigeria. We've talked about it. Then he went to G20 summit in Brazil, where he held bilateral meetings with different countries. Then the last leg of his tour included Guyana, a Latin American country. Okay, country in South America. Okay, he met with Guyanese President Muhammad Irfan Ali. Now, the visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Guyana was after 56 years. So, it was the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Guyana in the last 56 years. So, that's a significant milestone for the two countries. Okay. Now, what is important for us? Questions might be asked related to Guyana in prelims. Okay. Now, this was their meeting between Modi ji and Irfan Ali. But what is Guyana? Or where is Guyana, basically? Questions might be asked from that also. So some information regarding Guyana. Okay, so from this map, you can see the location of Guyana. This is the South American continent. Here is Atlantic Ocean, and Guyana is on mainland South America. It is not an state, and it is surrounded by South American countries. So Guyana, a country on South America's North Atlantic coast, defined by dense rainforest, English speaking. So remember, it is English speaking, almost the only English speaking country on the South American continent, because the rest are Spanish or Portuguese, and French Guyana is basically speaks French. So it is English speaking country in Latin America or South America, one of the only few. Basically, it plays cricket also. Its citizens are part of the West Indian team. They are more in sync with the Caribbean islands over here. Okay, Caribbean islands. Guyana is bordered by Atlantic Ocean to the north, Brazil to the south, Venezuela to the west, and Suriname to the east. Okay, Guyana is the third smallest sovereign state. So within South America, it is the third smallest. Okay, by area in mainland South America after Uruguay and Suriname. All right. Now, this is the information about Guyana. Location specific information about Guyana that you need to know. Remember, Guyana is an English speaking country. Venezuela isn't. Colombia isn't. Brazil isn't. Almost all countries speak either Portuguese or Spanish in South America. Guyana doesn't. It is an English speaking country. Okay. Now, what sort of key agreements were finalized in this visit of Prime Minister Modi? So, first of all, an MOU was signed under which India will deploy UPI to Guyana. It will really help boost digital payments in Guyana. Then, defense cooperation. India has already supplied 2 Dornier aircrafts to Guyana, and military training exercise would be done. Then, for agriculture, millet seeds were provided to Guyana to improve food security situation. Plus, there is cooperation in rice milling, sugarcane, corn, soya, other crops. Then, do you know about Jan Aushadhi Kendra? Jan Aushadhi Kendras in India actually provide generic medicines, cheap medicines to Indians so that medicines are affordable. A Jan Aushadhi Kendra will be opened in Guyana also. Plus, India will increase pharma exports to Guyana. Plus, President Ali praised Modi, calling him champion among leaders, especially of the developing world. So, these are the key highlights of this visit. But I would again reiterate, what is important for you is to remember this part. This part is more important. Okay? All right. Now let's move on to our fourth topic of the day, which is sacred relics of Saint Francis Xavier. Okay. So decennial exposition. Decennial means once in 10 years. So decennial exposition. Exposition means displaying for public view. So decennial exposition of sacred relics of Saint Francis Xavier, the patron saint of Goa, will begin on Thursday, November 21, and go on till January 5 next year. Okay. So who is Saint Francis Xavier? Saint Francis Xavier was from Portugal, and he came to Goa to spread Christianity. Okay. Now he died in 1552, but his mortal remains were not buried; they were preserved. And every 10 years, his mortal remains are displayed for public view because it is a sacred thing for Catholic Christians in India. They come to see the mortal remains of Saint Francis Xavier every 10 years because they think it's a sacred thing to do. Okay, so his mortal remains will be up for display for public viewing from November 21 to January 5th. Okay, Catholics all over India consider this a sacred thing. All right. Pilgrims, especially from the Catholic community, and tourists will converge and go over the next 45 days to pay homage to saint whose mortal remains will be put on public display for veneration. Now, this topic is important for understanding Indian culture because Indian culture is not about, I guess it includes all religions, right? So we need to take care of that also. Now, who was Saint Francis Xavier? So Saint Francis Xavier, also referred to as Goencho Sahib, Lord of Goa, arrived in Goa in 1542. By then, Goa became a Portuguese colony and stayed that even after India's independence. His primary mission, as ordered by King John III of Portugal, was to restore Christianity among the Portuguese settlers. One of the founding members of the Society of Jesus. So he founded the Society of Jesus also, which was responsible for spreading Christianity on the Indian subcontinent. Now, his mortal remains were never buried, they were preserved and housed at Basilica of Bom Jesus in Old Goa since 1624. Okay, and every now and then, they are displayed to the public for sacred rituals. Okay. Now, about this ritual, this tradition of exposition. So, during the exposition, 4-century-old silver glass casket holding the relics will be lowered from its resting place at the church. Okay. Then, one more thing that you need to know, though this tradition of public viewing every 10 years is pretty recent, but this exposition has been going on since St. Francis' death. Okay, because it is again sacred for Catholics. So remember St. Francis Xavier's name, his role in spreading Christianity, especially to the state of Goa. Many Goans are Christians, Catholic Christians, because of St. Francis Xavier's efforts. And last but not the least, Ground Station as a Service, GSaaS. After satellites and launch vehicles, the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center in space is looking at ways for entry of private players in the ground segment also. Now, remember, InSpace is an organization created by Government of India, which functions under Department of Space. Okay, and the role of InSpace is to promote private players' entry into the space sector. So, to encourage more private sector participation in space sector, InSpace was formed. Now, InSpace has said that we have somehow initiated the participation of private players in satellites, satellite making, launch vehicles, rocket making, but we are still lagging behind in terms of ground segments. Now, what are ground segments? Well, ground segments are those ground stations which control satellites, launch vehicles, rockets, space assets in space, right? So we need private player participation in this area also. Now, InSpace has termed it ground station as a service. So what would happen is that private players would create a ground station and they would give these ground stations on rent, or they would provide the services offered by these ground stations to different satellite makers, to different space explorers. Okay. Now, this is known as ground station as a service because this ground station will be used as a service to be provided to different players. Now, InSpace says that this sector is expected to grow 30% by 2033 from 0.14 billion to 2.5 billion. This is in line with government's vision to increase India's share in global commercial space market from 2% to 8%. So India aims to increase its share in space economy all over the world to 8%. And if India participates in this ground segment also, then India would definitely reach its goal of 8%. Now, what is GSaaS? So services such as satellite control, telemetry, tracking, space data reception, space situational awareness would be provided by these ground stations. Thing is that every satellite launcher or every person or like ISRO who wants to launch a satellite and operate it have to construct a ground station as well. And constructing just one ground station is not sufficient because a ground station covers only some path of a satellite's orbit. To cover the entire path of a satellite's orbit, you create a network of ground stations, many ground stations. Okay, so to operate one satellite, you need to construct a network of ground stations, and that can become really expensive, very expensive. What if these ground stations are already created by some private players and they charge you a fee for their service? That is GSaaS. The benefit would be cost benefit, resource optimization, because this network of ground stations can cater to multiple satellites, not just one satellite. So resource optimization. Otherwise, each and every satellite should have had a separate ground station for itself. Then enhanced service coverage, collaborative innovation. Okay. Because building a network of ground station can be quite expensive. So that is why GSaaS, station as a service, will cut costs dramatically and private players should enter this space. All right. This was what was announced by InSpace. Okay. Now, I've mentioned this before. InSpace is an organization which promotes private participation in space sector. Earlier, it used to be an exclusive domain of ISRO, but now because of InSpace's efforts, private players have entered this heavily fortified sector. Okay, so let's talk a bit about InSpace. So, Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, it is a single window independent nodal agency that functions under DOS. It aims to enable and facilitate participation of private players in space sector. It is responsible to promote, authorize, supervise different space related activities. Basically, InSpace acts as a interface, okay, a link between ISRO and private players. So private players who want to use the facilities already created by ISRO, they have to approach InSpace first. And then InSpace will approach ISRO on behalf of these private players. These private players are referred to as non-governmental entities by InSpace. It's headquartered in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. That's it. And with that, we conclude today's heavy session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I hope it has added value to your preparation. But please do not forget to revise these current affairs. Also, it would take another 20 to 25 minutes, and these current affairs would get consolidated in your memory for longer periods of time. So spend around 20 to 25 minutes more on revising this lecture. Okay? Revise this lecture from our notes. And where can you find our notes? From our Telegram channel, whose link is provided in the comment section below. All right. On that note, I'll sign off. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'll see you next time with next day's current affairs. Thank you. Bye-bye.